The foot rig we made in level 1 is good, but we can make it better. One way it can be improved is by adding banking control. So let's go ahead and get started on that in this lesson. In this scene, we have the final rig that was built in level 1. So by now, we should be accustomed to the rigging tools in Maya that would help us create a very decent rig. Now we most certainly can improve upon this, and that's what we'll focus on in level 2. So we'll cover some more advanced topics, but nothing too crazy at all. And remember, the purpose of the Quick Start course is to progressively improve upon our work and to cover more advanced techniques that would help us really get the outcome we'd expect from our rig. Now for our foot bank, we'll need to set up a few things. We'll need to create pivot controls so that we can make sure that the character here will pivot properly when he starts to bank his feet. We'll also work with an expression to make sure that we can control this banking behavior from just one channel. Alright, so let's say we go ahead and get to work by creating those pivot controls, and we could always work with joints. We'll head over to Window, we'll grab the outliner, let's go ahead and expand our global node group, and from here let's go ahead and find our skeleton group. We'll go ahead and set the visibility to 1 so we can go ahead and show our bone objects. Next, let's go ahead and select our leg control. We'll go ahead and press the F key to quickly find it. Let's go ahead and expand its hierarchy because we need to go ahead and bring back our driver joints that we use for our foot roll. Alright, so we'll go ahead and select the one on the left side, set the visibility to on. We'll do the same thing on the right side. Okay, great. So next, we'll go in and create the joints we'll need. We could always work with one of the joints we already have. Let's say the toe joint, for example. I'll go ahead and select the toe joint connected to the chain that's skinned to the character, so that's BEL toe. Let's go ahead and duplicate it, Control D, and we'll press Shift P to unparent it. Now from here, let's go ahead and make sure our Move tool is set to object mode so we can go ahead and start to move this back using the orientation of this bone. It'll make it a lot easier for us to make sure that this pivots correctly. So we'll go ahead and have this placed on the left side of the character's foot. Great. So this looks like a good point to bank from. Now the opposite side might seem kind of tricky. What we might want to do is make sure that that object is placed around the end of this toe here, because this is what sticks out the most. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll go ahead and take this bone object, we'll go ahead and press Control D to duplicate it, and let's now go ahead and move this to the end of the toe on the opposite side. If you need to, feel free to increase the radius on this joint so you can select it a little bit easier in case it's difficult to select between this and the actual joint that's connected to the end of this toe. Alright, so I'll go ahead and move this over just a little bit more, and I think this is pretty good. If you need to, you could always adjust your orientation. So if you find that, hey, the foot here kind of curves around, I might have to just go to the joint orient channels and adjust the orientation to make sure that we get some really nice banking. Well, you have the liberty to do so. Remember, it's just a matter of selecting the object, pressing Control A to switch over to the attribute editor. We need to find the axis we would want to tweak. So in this case, it looks like it's the Y axis. So you'd start to adjust the joint orient Y settings until you've managed to fix the orientation. So this looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and check the other one. I'd say that this is going to work very well. So at this point, we can go in and rename these joints. So the one selected here, since this is on the right side of the character's foot, but it's still connected to the left foot, we can always use a naming convention of JDRV L bank right 01. Let's now copy this name and use this to rename the next joint. So this will be bank left. Alright, great. So we have our joints in place. Now, how will we get these connected in? Well, remember the pivoting control we set up for our foot roll. Remember that? Well, it's kind of going to work the same way, only we now need to connect these two joints into this hierarchy. So here's how this is going to work. Our heel joint, let's go ahead and grab that, and we can have that parented to the joint on the left side of the character's foot. So with the heel selected, we'll hold down the Shift key, we'll click on that joint, and then we'll press the P key to parent. Beautiful. So now we have a way to bank on the left side of the character's foot. How cool is that? Now we can go ahead and take this joint and parent to the one on the other side of the foot, the one that we set up around the toe. And take a look, we now have a way to pivot from the other end. Let's now take this joint and have that parented to our foot. And you'll see now that we have a way to not only bank the feet, but then everything will still be controlled the way it normally was. So that's the process for setting this up. Now what I'd like to do is go ahead and make sure that these joint objects are brought over to the right side. So instead of recreating them, we could always go ahead and mirror them across. Now, in order to do so, it might be a good idea to go ahead and unparent them temporarily. So we'll go ahead and just take our two joints here. Let's go ahead and shift select them and press Shift P. Let's go ahead and grab the heel, and we could always go ahead and have that parented back to our control object temporarily. Now that we know that this works very well, we can successfully just go ahead and mirror this across and get everything connected back in. So starting on the left side, we'll go ahead and head back to skeleton and we'll grab our mirror joint tool. The options should still be just fine. Should be no need to change them, and we'll choose mirror. Let's now grab the next joint around the toe and press the G key to repeat the last tool. Alright, they've been renamed, so that saves us some time, and they're in the right spot. So let's go ahead and get right to work. We already know the parenting order, so that's a matter of selecting the heel, parenting that to bank left. We can now go ahead and parent bank left to bank right. There it is. And now we can go ahead and parent bank right to our foot control. Beautiful. Let's go ahead and do the same thing for the right side, and that will be it for this lesson. And in the following lesson, we'll learn how to work with that expression we talked about to make sure that the banking can be controlled by a custom channel. So that's going to be another very fun topic. So here, it'll work the same way. We can go ahead and grab the heel and have that parented to the joint on the character's right side. Since that's on the right half of the foot, you might just go ahead and rename this to bank right instead of bank left, just for clarity. Great. And now we can go ahead and take this joint and parent it to the next one that's on the left side of the foot. I'll go ahead and name this one to bank left. You might have noticed that there was a 2 added to bank right simply because those joints had the same name at one point. But we just took care of that. So it's just a matter of going back to our first joint and setting that to the name of bank right 01. Beautiful. Now remember, we want to take bank left and have that parented to our leg control. And let's test this out. So as we start to move this around, take a look, everything's working just fine, and our banking control is also working just fine. Another thing to check is to make sure that the foot roll is working. So we'll go ahead and take a look at that. How exciting. Let's go ahead and take a look at that on the opposite side. Beautiful stuff. All right, well, we've managed to create a really neat foot banking system. Let's go ahead and stop the lesson here and work on finishing this up in the following lesson.